All right, guys, I just got back from San Francisco where HoverAir actually had a little demo event showing off some of their new drones, which is this right here. The HoverAir X1, the Pro, as well as the ProMax. But there was no expectation to make a video. There's no expectation to produce anything. All they said was, come check it out. If you wanted to post anything, just wait till debut, which is on the 26th. So making any content, any video is optional. Also, of course, not paid to go out there. Like I said, they only just paid for my travel if I wanted to attend. With the new Pro and Pro Max, you are able to actually fly the drone with a remote control. Now for this demo, we weren't able to do that. However, we did go outside and it wasn't actually planned. There just happened to be a park across the street. And we did a few of the follow modes that the Hover X1 can do. We did it on the new Pro and the Pro Max. So of course, this isn't a full review video. This is really like a first look, my first impressions of the drone. And I just want to talk about, of course, some of the stuff that's on the spec sheet. Of course, you can just read all of the specs, do the comparisons. But I want to talk about some of the things that aren't really on here, and that's something you learn and you figure out while you have it in your hands. Now, this is the HoverAir X1. If you guys haven't seen my review video on that one, I'll leave it linked above as well as down below in the video description. I mentioned in that video that this thing is actually a pretty cool drone for what it is. It's a very small, compact drone that you're able to then unfold, power it up, set which kind of intelligent mode you want to use, whether it's a pullback shot, circle shot, things like that. And it's really made for just getting really close proximity types of drone shots. And that was one of the questions I had when I saw the drone, because when I first saw it, when you start seeing some of the materials, you think that the drone is gonna be like a bigger drone to compare and compete against something like the DJI Air, but it's actually a fairly still small pocketable drone. It is a little bit bigger than the X1. And the one thing that it did emphasize was that they're still gonna be keeping with that space. I think it sits in its own lane still at this point. They're not trying to compete against the DJI Mini or the Air, but they still want to keep it in its own lane where it's really just to take it out of your pocket, put it up in the air, get some shots around you just to get some establishing shots, bring it back in, fold it up, and take it on the go. What they really did here with the Pro and the Pro Max is just give us all the same features that we have here and bump everything up. Bump up the specs, bump up the gimbal. And when it comes down to weight, the X1, the original one, this one, 125 grams. The new one, the Pro and the Pro Max, come in at about 190 grams. So for all of their drones, they do sit under that 250 gram mark. So if you're worried about registering your drone, you don't have to as far as registering it with the FAA. Now, when it comes down to video resolution, the X1 capped out at 2.7K, while the new Pro shoots 4K up to 60 frames a second, and the new Pro Max. You'll notice the Pro Max when you start seeing the gold logo on the drone, as well as on the side, you'll see it's gold. If you see the gold version of the new Pro and Pro Max, that is the 8K version. You can actually shoot in 8K, 30 frames a second. Like I mentioned, we just got a demo of it. I don't have the drone to test out the 8K. They did provide us some of the marketing stuff that they used, which they shot in 8K. So I'll be flashing that up on screen. But once I get the drone in hand, I'll be able to actually shoot 8K. And of course, put that side by side with some of the other drones on the market. Now, when it comes down to slow motion, the X Pro can shoot 1080p, 120 frames a second, while the new Pro Max can shoot in 4K, 120 frames a second. When it comes down to flight time, the original X1 only had a flight time of about 11 minutes. So realistically, usable minutes, you'll probably get around 7 to 8 minutes with this one. While now the new Pro and Pro Max can get about 16 minutes of flight time. So like I said, once I test it, I'll be able to know a little bit more accurate numbers, but I'd probably say you're gonna get about 10, 12 of actual flight time out of those new drones. Now, one thing they did mention is that the new Pro and Pro Max, they were really emphasizing it being a really good personal travel drone. That can also follow you if you were to switch over into the follow function, that can follow you at a higher speed. The X1 can only go about 25 kilometers per hour as far as follow me goes. And then now the new Pro and Pro Max bumped it up to 42 kilometers per hour. A new design element that they have on the new drones, which I really like compared to this one right here. If you were to change the mode on the X1, you're basically just pressing the button and it'll light up which mode it is. On the new Pro and the Pro Max, they have now a built-in screen, so you can actually see.
Zoom out. Follow. Orbit. Bird eye.
Now, one really cool feature that they have there as far as an accessory goes, but they didn't demo it, is this right here. They actually have a beacon that connects to the drone. So if you are out there flying and you have maybe a little obstruction, or you have a tree or a building in the way, the drone will ideally follow where the beacon is instead of just following you by vision. Now, I did talk about a remote control earlier. What's cool is that that beacon also serves as like this middle screen that can also hook up to a remote control. So if you want to physically fly your drone now, the Pro and the Pro Max, with a remote control, they do have accessories now that hook up to the beacon. It folds down, you're able to put your phone underneath it, and you can fly your drone. You can fly the new Pro and the Pro Max with a physical remote control. You don't solely have to rely on the mobile phone app to do all of your maneuvers. You can use now an actual joystick and a standard remote control style to fly the new drones. Now, like I mentioned earlier, these drones kind of sit in their own lane. They're not really meant to fly as you would normally like a Mini or a Mavic or an Air, where you're trying to get out there thousands and thousands of feet. If you do want the greatest distance, you can actually pilot the drone using the beacon. You can get about 1 kilometer away as far as transmission goes from your remote control to the drone, to the new drones. But you are going to need that beacon, and I'd probably recommend, of course, getting the remote controls for that. Now, range, of course, is something that's going to be in a lot of people's minds, because you just want to make sure that if I'm able to take that thing out there, that the transmission is going to be good, and I will definitely test that out once I get the drone in hand. Now, with the new design of the drone, also because it's a little bit heavier, they also bumped up the wind resistance. We have level 4 wind resistance on the X1. Now we have level 5 wind resistance on the Pro and the Pro Max. Now, wind resistance is something that they were really emphasizing because they want you to be able to take your drone out there, follow you while you're on your bike, follow you when you're going up there hiking at different elevations. And as we went outside to the park, it was actually pretty windy, and the drone actually held up pretty good. You can see all the trees and everything in the background. And it was kind of funny when we were out there, we were like, oh, all right, here, we can finally do like a wind test now, because it was actually kicking up pretty well, and the drone did fine. I did a little follow function around the park. Also went up some stairs, went back down, because I want to see if the drone can follow me going up and down, just changing elevations, and the drone actually did a pretty good job. There's some stairs over here on the side, so I want to see how well it does, and the wind is kicking in. I want to see how well it does actually tracking up the stairs. That's one concern I know with a lot of drones. Is it able to follow you up elevation and back down? All right, first and foremost, let's go with the follow. Press it.
Follow.
Okay. All right, so we are up. I'm gonna stand back and wait for the red light. Red light is on. That means we are good to go as far as the follow me function goes. So ideally, I should be fine here, and this thing should be following me. So we'll see how this goes. Let's give it a quick little run over around here, and come around. And over here is where I really want to test it. Now, there's some trees here on the side. I don't know how well that's going to do on this. Watch out for those trees. Running up the steps. Elevation. Let's see how this does. Still on me. We're good. Coming back down. All right. There you go. Not too bad. Some of the other accessories that they had there on display, which we were able to take a look at, is this power case, which is pretty cool. You can actually fold up your drone, put it into this little clamshell case, and it'll charge while it's in the case. So when you get to your next destination, ideally you'll have a little bit more charge on there. And also thermo smart batteries, which they had there. The new batteries on the new drones, 1920 milliamp batteries. They also have some accessories that you're able to hook up the beacon to something like your bike. Had some GoPro style, 2-prong mounts. So if you want to hook up to any of those mounting systems that action cameras have, you're able to do that. Also, they have these multifunctional carrying bags. So a bunch of accessories now that they're coming out with to enhance the new drone, the new Pro and the Pro Max. And one of the first things that caught my eye on the new Pro and Pro Max, I do like the sleek design of the new drones. It does have a little bit more arrow here on the front, kind of cuts through, and also the camera. You could tell that there's a big difference with the X1 camera. This one has a 1-axis gimbal, just some dampeners here, but the new Pro and the Pro Max do have a 2-axis gimbal, as well as EIS, or electronic image stabilization. Now, one thing that a lot of people, I guess, brought up from reviewing the X1 was that they didn't recommend flying the X1 over water Where here now, the new drones, they're saying that you are able to fly this over water. But yeah, they did mention that that was a big request for the new drones to not have any like weird sensor issues when it's flying over water. They've added in more proximity sensors as well as rear and side ones. And on the Pro Max, we have vision sensors on the back. That's something you don't get on the Pro. The main reason why they have those sensors now is, of course, if you are going to be following or if the drone's going to be pulling away, it can now ideally detect obstacles behind the drone if it's going to be doing things like a pullback or that pull away shot. Now, when it comes down to storage, on the new drones, the Pro has a 32 gig internal as well as the ability to expand out with an SD card or micro SD card up to 1 terabyte. On the Pro Max, you do have 64 gigs internal with the ability as well to expand it out to 1 terabyte by using an external micro SD card. Now, when it comes down to build quality and the feel in the hands, feels a little bit more robust, a bit heavier in the hands, and I like the way that they updated the cage on the new ones while still keeping the form factor still pretty small. Definitely is a little bit bigger than the original X1, but not as big as some of the other drones on the market. Now, overall, pretty impressed with the new drones. I do like the fact that they know that they're kind of staying in their own lane, and they've had that lane with the X1, something that no other drones on the market have really been focusing on. And then now also have added on a bunch of other features, which kind of takes it up a little notch with that beacon. Also a actual physical controller, which I think a lot of people like myself would like to have had with something like this. They now have those options here. Now, like I mentioned, this is just my first look, first hands-on with the drone. I know they're gonna be selling it on Indiegogo starting for the Pro, it'll be starting at $499, and the Pro Max starting at $699. And I believe on Indiegogo, they're gonna be doing some promotion where if you buy within the first, I believe, 48 hours or so, they're gonna be knocking off $100 off of each, which means the Pro would be at $399, and then the Pro Max would coming in at $599 if you were to order the early bird stuff. So if you guys are interested in it, like I said, once I get the drone, I'll be able to do a full review on it. But if you want to take advantage of all the deals that they have for the initial release, I'll leave those links down below in the video description. As always, if you guys got some value from this video, a big like would be much appreciated. This is Ultra Stacio with FlytPath.com. I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.